So 40% of Russia's oil refining capacity is offline right now, which is great because it funds the soldier salaries to kill Ukrainians, invade other countries. That is the war machine. They are legitimate targets. Every oil refinery, every weapons warehouse, every plane, every airfield that is being hit by Ukraine is a legitimate military target. And it is a country defending itself. 101 warfare. If you don't understand that, you don't understand war. But there's a lot of people, usually linked to Russia, who like to say that it's the same thing for Russia to hit a hospital or a 74-year-old woman walking through the streets of Kherson as it is for Ukraine to launch a long-range strike into an oil refinery that's funding the war. And they couldn't be different things. Something is offensive, which is what Russia's doing, murder and onslaught, and as there's a country defending itself. Ukraine is doing these long-range strikes because it also has no other option. And this is very, very clear now. Ukraine doesn't have the same manpower as Russia does. And Ukraine isn't willing to drag people out of hospitals, drag people out of asylums, do what Russia does to throw people into meat grinders. Ukraine doesn't have the same number of people, but Ukraine values human life, which is why they focus so much on robotics to storm trenches rather than people. So there's a second option, and it's really the only option, and that is to destroy Russia's war machine financially, what is paying for the war, the shadow fleet and the oil refineries. And if that can happen, then this will end. That's what pays every salary of every soldier firing every drone into Kherson. And instead of trying to find those soldiers and kill those soldiers, you kill the funding source. So these long-range strikes are going to continue because that is how Ukraine fights back, and that's how Ukraine stops this. And it's going to get far worse. If you really think about it, these strikes have been happening for just over a year now. But the first strike was global news. Ukraine hits a Russian refinery. This is the most unprecedented thing. And then it was once a week, and then it was once a day, and now it's every single night. And consistently this month, Ukraine's launched more drones into Russia than Russia has launched into Ukraine. And that's a good thing because those drones are headed for military targets. The drones in the other direction are not.
And I was reading the recent analysis from the Institute for the Study of War, when they were saying that there is a huge problem with the air defense of Russia. And the reason is because while Ukraine is doing this constant night attacks on oil refineries and all these ports for export their oil, the distance between those places so huge that they are just not capable to shut down everything. So this is the problem, which is good for Ukraine.
Yeah, well, historically, Russia's size was its strength because before drones, before missiles, to get to Moscow, to invade a capital, you had to physically walk there or drive tanks there. That's why the Germans were stopped in the snow, in the mud, trying to siege Stalingrad. But now its size is actually its weakness. It is completely flipped on its head, 180 degrees. And now its size means that it cannot defend its skies. It can't defend its refineries. It can't defend its military sites. And most of the air defense is focused around Putin's houses and Putin's private property right now and following him around. So it's Russia's greatest weakness right now. Russia used to love to pride itself on its size and being the biggest and best country ever. That actually is its biggest problem right now. Which is also why Putin is probably so paranoid right now as well, because these strikes are just all getting through. Ukraine is increasing the number of weapons that they're making right now to saturate Russian air defense systems. And Russians just can't believe this. The barrage of 600 drones that were launched from Ukraine into Leningrad Oblast to destroy the ports on the Baltic Sea that took out 40%. Even locals couldn't believe that it was true, that Ukrainian drones had made it that far over all those territories, that they developed conspiracy theories that they were launched from Finland and launched from NATO and launched from the Baltics. That's what all the locals believed, because they were like, how is it possible? We're the greatest country in the world. Why are these drones all arriving? They can't be from Ukraine. They would have been shot down. And Russians are slowly realizing that their country, A, doesn't really care about them and defending them. They only care about defending Putin. But B, that their air defenses suck. And they can't build more air defenses. Air defense systems are incredibly expensive. An S-300 system costs hundreds of millions of dollars. Ukraine has been wiping those out. A lot of them are in Crimea. They're almost gone from Crimea now. The air defense systems in Mariupol have been taken out. And you cannot repair air defense systems when there's a labor shortage, when there's a massive draft right now, when there are sanctions in place. The parts to get systems and chips for air defense systems where a lot of them were European before. They take a very, very, very long time to get. So, and also there's an economic issue in Russia as well. They don't have billions and billions and billions to build new production lines to build these Soviet-era systems. So once an air defense system is taken out in Russia, it's not coming back. They can build drones right now and Shaheeds. They're getting children to do it, but they can't build air defenses. So once they're gone, and that's pretty exciting to watch. But yeah, so it's going to be. And also, they're distracted in Iran trying to keep their friends, they're helping Iran kill the Americans in American bases.
Caolan, speaking about your next huge story, Hungary is approaching its elections, and after 16 years of Viktor Orban being in power, and he's known as the most pro-Russian politician and leader of the country in the European Union. And you go in there, you're going to cover the elections. You will know more on April 12, working on the ground. But so far, the American vice president landed in Budapest. He arrived to support Viktor Orban. Why do you think actually Hungary and the United States are so tied together right now?
Well, so it's not the United States, it's Trump and his Russian interests, sending his entourage to try and prop up his Russian dictator puppet friend, who has, by the way, Orban, turned Hungary in the last 16 years into the poorest, most corrupt and least free country in the EU. And Orban right now is trying to tell Hungarians that they're under attack, that there is terrorism, that there's espionage being carried out, and it's all under attack from Ukraine. The last time tanks rolled into Budapest and the last time Hungary was under attack was with the Soviets in the 1950s, from Moscow, not from Ukraine. And they're under attack again in the same way. So Orban's right, but it's from Russia. They're under attack through their misinformation campaigns. A study in the Wall Street Journal recently posted, and the Financial Times, that a Kremlin-linked voting operation team have now been seen in Budapest to help keep Orban in power. This was a team that was exposed doing similar things in Latin America in 2023 by the Americans. And so Hungary is now basically becoming a Russian stronghold where things are starting to look like the Soviet Union, where politics are discussed quietly in silence in the street because journalists are terrified of being arrested, of being censored. What Orban has done, just to be very, very clear, is turn Hungary into Russia. The comparisons are direct. Journalists being silenced, people being censored. Orban now controls most of the media. He controls most of the universities. He controls most of the civil service. He controls most of the newspapers. And he controls a fifth of the economy. And that's what Russia does. And that's because he is a dictator. People like Trump love authoritarian figures. They love fascists. That's why he loves Putin. He loves strong leaders. And he wants Orban in power. He wants a friend in Europe. And so that's why he sent J.D. Vance to check him out. J.D. Vance never came here to Kyiv. This country is far bigger, far more important politically than Hungary on the world stage. It is the center of the future of warfare and defense. But J.D. Vance went to Hungary. That's because they're not interested in Ukraine. They're interested in propping up dictators around the world. The government have basically decided that they are going to war with the media and with journalists. I've already spoken on the phone to journalists that I will be meeting the second I get off the train in Hungary, who have said that they're worried about reporting on certain things. They're worried about being thrown in prison. They're worried about being sued. The journalist that recorded a phone call between the Hungarian foreign minister and the Russian foreign minister, Sergei Lavrov, has now been threatened, is terrified. He was threatened directly by the government. In that phone call, it was basically the Hungarian politicians, it was basically the foreign minister giving secrets about defense, secrets about the European Union to the Russians, to their masters. And if you listen to the phone call, it sounds like they're best friends. Hey, how's it going? I hope you're really well. I hope you're having a great time. Did you get the information I wanted? And so it's gotten so bad that European leaders have refused to now discuss anything defense related to Hungary because they know it'll just be passed to the Russians. So it's like becoming a complete disaster, to the point where I think Orban will lose this weekend. But I don't think he's going to leave. I think that he is going to behave just like Putin did, and he's going to try and pull something to try and stay in power. because he knows that he will probably be thrown in prison for what he has been doing for the last 16 years. He has enriched his billionaire friends. There's a village he lives in full of them. These are now people that control most of the institutions there, people that he knew in high school, his extended family, who own stadiums in Hungary now, who own entire shopping malls and organizations. And he's looted the country. And that's why he calls Ukraine corrupt, because it's projection.
Hungary is the most corrupt country in the European Union, according to statistic data.
Yeah, and so that's why this is what people do when they're projecting, right? They call everyone else doing the same.
I was listening the recent interview of the opponent of Viktor Orban, Peter Magyar, the head of TISA party, and Magyar told the journalists that he's kind of afraid that his country is becoming much more anti-European, and that the young generation and the older generation, a lot of people are afraid that they are becoming more pro-Kremlin than becoming European. They're in the European Union, basically.
Yeah, the European Union has been far too soft on Hungary. The point of being in the European Union is that you are a functional democracy with free press, with transparent systems, with a low level of corruption index. Europe has allowed this to carry on for far too long. Just like the EU have allowed the shadow fleet to carry on for too long, just like the EU have been too little too late to condemn Russian propagandists in the parliament, the EU in Brussels is completely infested with these people, just like most of European institutions, like Venice, like the Olympics Committee. So it's going to be down to the Hungarian people whether they want to live under this or not, whether they want to stand for this or not. And I don't think they will. Everything Orban has done has backfired with the population. Last year Orban said that he wanted to clamp down on gay people, LGBT marriage, all this kind of stuff. And that resulted in the biggest LGBT rally in the history of Hungary. So that didn't quite work out either for him. And hopefully this weekend it won't work out for him either.